Some time ago, last year, Chayn's Facebook page, the organization that I run, received a message which said something like this. It was from a girl in Pakistan, and she was a young girl who was living in a cosmopolitan Islamabad, and she was asking me and Chayn whether we could help her. And if we couldn't, that we should just let her die. So I spoke to her for a few weeks, and this is what I found out. She was studying in a vibrant college in Islamabad, where she was studying to be a doctor, but then her father lost his job, so they had to return to his tribal roots, a very small and secluded and patriarchal, conservative part of Pakistan. She now found herself suddenly away from her friends, locked in a house all day because it's very dangerous there, and with no choice whatsoever but to marry a man far, far older than her. All she had was a mobile phone. Over the next few weeks, we spoke, and it became quite clear to both her and me that there wasn't much that I could do. There was no direct assistance I could offer her. And she said something which I will never forget. She said, "Thank you very much for talking to me. I feel like a human again." She told me that her life to her was like that of an animal, but that now she was happy. She knew I couldn't help her, and she wasn't going to message me again. But just knowing that I spoke to her as somebody who mattered was enough. To her, the most important thing was that she should matter to the world, that she exists. A few months later, I wanted to check back with her to see how she's doing. And when I went back to our Facebook message history, I found out that her Facebook account had been deactivated, which prompted me to look at her Facebook profile again. And I was shocked. There was something in front of me which I had not seen before. The first time she got in touch with me, I had just glanced over her profile and then dismissed and not thought too much about it, because it clearly looked like a fake account, an account that women create just for social platforms. Her profile picture was that of a smiling donkey. It was highly pixelated. But now that I was looking back at it, I saw what her name was, and the name she had given herself, and fooled Facebook into believing it was a human name, was Jungli Janwar, which means wild beast. That is how she felt her life was. In the economically developing world, 200 million fewer women than men have access to internet, which is a striking number if you think about oppressed women like the one who contacted me. For them, when they cannot find support at home, online is their only route. In the past 3 years, I've had the pleasure of hearing from some amazing, brave women who are defying society's expectation of silent obedience, compliance, and using the internet as a gateway to discovery. Women are using the mobile phone and hiding in the toilet to find out how they can get divorced. They are hiding beneath the bed covers when their parents are asleep to find out about universities and scholarships that they can apply to, that they can get them away from an abusive home. They're chatting to harassment helplines when the boss is away from work. They're using their friend's phone to find a shelter for mom. And they're asking their friends to buy them a spare phone that they can hide somewhere so that when their abusive boyfriend is not around, they can actually have a normal life. Women are finding ways to get online, with or without the permission of people that oppress them. By the time I finish the sentence, millions of us will be told what we can or cannot do with our bodies, our property, our lives, that we must put family, society, and tradition first. The thing that always gets me is that when you think about the whole world and how big a problem this is, in just the UK alone, 3 million women will face some sort of violence in their life every year. And globally, that is 2 out of 3 women. And this is violence that comes from family, co-workers, friends, strangers, the person walking down the street, a religious leader, and the state. So it is privileged and naive of us to assume that every time a woman is at risk, she will just walk into an office of a police station or an NGO and ask for help, because that very thing could put her in danger. She may not be able to, and she may not want to. And it's important that we take that into consideration because women are already turning online for support. But civil society and governments just aren't there yet. 3 years ago, I was helping someone very close to me build a case for asylum in the UK on the basis of domestic abuse and the threat to life. So together, me and her went through hundreds of websites and looked at lots of helplines, spoke to lots of people, and one thing became abundantly clear to me, and that is that almost every website that I came across from NGOs was from the perspective of an organization. So imagine this is the website. You enter the website, and then you see a bunch of links and pictures over here which tell you, here's our latest policy reports, read. Here's our CEO in the news, read that. Or here are a bunch of press releases we've done. And then somewhere around the corner over here, there would be links. Oh yeah, by the way, this is the police number, and there's the other numbers that you need. And there was this assumption, there was no alternative than just going to the police. And I found that very striking, given how dangerous it can be. There was no alternative, there was no supportive material, so women just had two choices. They either get in touch with an NGO, go to the police, or do nothing, and just go back to their lives. So I wanted to change this, and I approached a lot of organizations in the UK and said, I want to think about user-centered design, I want to think about what women really want, I want to change how this is. And I met with, as you might expect, not so encouraging comments. Things like, who are you? Why would we work with you? We work with 6 governments. Are you a gender expert? Which I wasn't. Are you a lawyer? No, I have 20 years experience in this field. Why would I listen to you? Well, I was 23 at that time, so it wasn't really possible for me to have 20 years of experience, and I didn't want to get a law degree. So I just decided, angry, fired up, and dejected, I decided to start Chayn, an open source, volunteer-led organization that uses technology to empower women. These are the first notes that I drew up on what a supportive website looks like. And these were drawn right here in East London. Chayn in Urdu means solace. And Chayn is a proud organization that is proudly run by non-experts, by survivors, by friends of survivors, and by people who just give a damn. We build websites that answer questions that women might Google. Things like, he doesn't hit me, but is this still abuse? Or things like, how do I get a divorce? I don't know how to apply for it. Should I go to the police? What is the procedure? To how-to guides, like, I want to build a legal case. How do I do that? Or how to protect yourself from an online or offline stalker. And run co-created events called hackathons, where we show and work with charities to show them how they can use digital technology to go where users already are, online. And most of all, we try to create a culture and a space where women aren't just consumers of web, tech, and information, but also producers of it. So when they can't find the networks that they want, and they can't find the resources that they need, they can join a global sisterhood of kindred spirits, and then create that for themselves. But sadly, the online and tech world can also be racist, sexist, and misogynistic. And a clear example of this is because it depends on who holds the keystrokes. Which voice is the loudest? Who has the biggest numbers? A woman in India got in touch with us last year, and this is what she said. She said that I have been looking for 2 years, and I'm so glad I came across your website because I haven't been able to find a single link where I can find out how I can get divorced. I don't want to call a lawyer because I don't want any trail, but all the websites that I come across are telling me that women are just misusing the penal code. Of a country that has 580 million women, and 60% of men and women believe that women should keep the family together and should tolerate beatings and abuse, or sometimes they kind of deserve it. That's huge. And that really, really shows what kind of world we are in and who drives what people see online. I believe that charities shouldn't own technology. I believe that a shortage of funding has created a real hunger games in the public services sector. Charities shouldn't own technology, full stop. Not for the sake of brand and not for the sake of funding. And this is because we need to come together and solve a huge issue together, co-create with survivors, and bring content that is accessible and intersectionist. A good example of this is something that I'm really proud of, and I had the pleasure of working last year. I believe it might be some of the most important work I will ever do in my life. Chayn crowdsourced a legal toolkit called How Can You Make Your Own Domestic Violence Case Without a Lawyer? It was crowdsourced with the help of survivors, lawyers, social workers, citizens, and just people who cared. And this was done because we found that on survivor forums, we kept hearing the same things. We kept hearing things like, oh, today he got off, he's out on bail. People who had strangled their partners were out on bail because the courts deemed there wasn't enough evidence, putting people's life in danger, women and children. And we saw it so much that we thought we just needed to do something about it. And that's where the toolkit comes from. And that's a perfect example of working together with survivors and making them creators of resources they need because they know the best. And these Facebook groups are like fascinating. Here's some of the things that prompted the guide. And the reason why I think that one of the best things I've ever come across in my life online are these survivor-led Facebook groups, because it really demonstrates how women are taking control of tech already and creating communities of support, doing things where the gaps have been left by state and civil society. So they discuss things like, I went to the corner shop today, and I bought whatever I felt like having for tea. And it felt great, because nobody told me it was the wrong choice. To things like, they took my children away, and I don't think I can go on. Can somebody check with me in a few hours? Because I'm not sure what I will do. They're providing real support to each other. Here are some of the things that women said about the toolkit that they helped create themselves. In the event of a plane crash, it is recommended that you help yourself before you help others. In my experience, in real-life abuse, it isn't always the case. For many women who cannot get out of the situation they're in, helping others is the only way of getting some of that freedom back. When you cannot live freely yourself, you live a little with the freedom of others. Here's a message that we got on our volunteer form from a woman who clearly knew that she couldn't get out of the situation she was in, but she just wanted to help. She just wanted to help someone who could get out. Misogyny and patriarchy is global. There is no doubt about that. And violence against women and the nature of it might differ from country to country, but there's one thing that's quite clear. The motivations behind this are the same. Whether you're a young girl who's being forced into marriage in East London, or just walking home and wanting to get home safely without being harassed in Mexico, or trying to get a divorce in Lebanon, or filing for child custody in Uganda, or trying to safely access public spaces as trans women in the US. The violence all of these people face is driven by the same thing. It's to take agency away from us. Now, I never heard from Jungli Janwar, the girl from Pakistan who contacted me again. And I don't know what her life is like, but there's one thing that I do know, and that is that even though I couldn't offer her any direct assistance, I know that in her darkest hour, she knows now that she can count on a global sisterhood of kindred spirits to listen to her, to be on her side. So what can you all do, and what can we do as concerned citizens? I have a list. First thing we can do is we can end the tyranny of empty websites by filling it with open and free and supportive content. We can end the dismay of Google searches that lead to victim-blaming material. We can pressurize governments and intergovernmental organizations and funders to actually bring more women online, because it is life-changing. And most importantly, we must end the assumption, the very dangerous assumption, that a woman has to put herself at risk and come forward to deserve support. We must volunteer, co-create, build together networks, resources, and ecosystems where we create content that is free, open, inclusive, and intersectionist. If I could talk to all the women that have benefited from the work Chayn has done and I have done the past 3 years, I believe this is what they would want me to tell you. Information is empowering. We, as women, are misfed information about our rights, about our place in the world, what we can and cannot do, every stage of our life. But through the internet, we are taking the power back. We will, we are, and we will continue to take back the tech.